All right, welcome back to Live from Drew's House, another edition to end the week, last show of the week here. It has been very fun. My name's Drew Moholland, my wife, Sarah Conway, and look who's creeping in right next to you to start the show, right off the bat. There you go. Yeah, there you go.
There he is.
Hey, Mookie. There you go. All right. He has been sleeping, and seriously, hours. Very tired. Had a big morning, long walk in the woods, and he's been sleeping and sleeping and sleeping. As soon as we start this show, he is here and on. He is not afraid of the camera and likes it. So there you go. It's our boy Mookie. That's the puppy. The old guy Henry's out there sleeping on the back porch too. So that's our little day here. Hope you're all doing okay out there. Another week through a quarantine, hunkering down, social distance advisories, all that stuff. We've had a fun week on the show. We had Ryan Monteblue on. That was a blast.
Yep,
awesome. What a guy he was. Tori Mazzola, the head of the commuter rail, the spokesperson for the commuter rail. I always refer to him as the head because he's the guy that I get information from. He's the one that has to, when you're angry about your late train, Tori's the guy who has to figure out how to answer it and calm you down. So he's a good guy too. It was nice to actually talk with him. So we've had a good show. Today we end the show. I usually don't do this. I think it's maybe I had a cousin on before. Cousin Carly was on before, but I very rarely have family on besides you, of course, Sarah. But somebody very near and dear to our hearts is coming on the show. Your sister, my sister-in-law, Mary Conway is coming on because she's a nurse here. And, what a time to be in the hospitals. My goodness. Talk about the frontline heroes. And I don't know, she's always been reluctant to kind of talk about any of this stuff, and I don't know if I tricked her into doing it today or what. But she finally agreed to do it. Maybe she just needs to get me off her back. But I am curious to hear what it's like on the front lines these days. We've been battling this surge here. She's been going through it for the last 2 weeks, and starting to go in the right direction here, but it is still not fun to be working in the hospital. So we'll talk with her about that. I know you have a lot of respect for your sister there. Anything you'd like to add before we bring her in?
Yeah, I mean, I think she was just always kind of meant to be a nurse. She's always been like a caretaker, and I know we call them heroes now, but we should have been calling them heroes all along. I mean, our healthcare workers have always been the heroes in our community. So I have a lot of respect for what she does, and I think she's been amazing and very strong and just positive through this whole thing. So she's really just showing her true colors, but she's always been amazing. So,
that was so sweet.
I love my sister.
Yeah. Well, as the dogs get their drink of water, they're just so loud during the show. It is incredible. Hopefully you find it amusing and not annoying. It's probably a little bit of both, if I had to guess. Let's get to Mary. Is Mary ready? She's ready. We're going to bring her in right now. You don't need to hear any more of us. We've done enough of that this week. Let's hear what it's like on the front lines. And you don't need me to talk about it. Let's bring in Mary Conway. All right, welcome back to Afternoon Drive. Again, my name is Drew Moholland, my wife, Sarah Conway, and we bring in a guest very near and dear to our hearts, Sarah's sister, my sister-in-law, nurse practitioner on the North Shore, Mary Conway. How are you, Mary?
Hi, guys. I'm good. How are you?
Very good. Excellent apartment. I like that. So you got a big clock like we do on your...
Look, we kind of match.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's your big clock.
You must run in the family there.
Mm-hmm.
We get Mookie's sneaking up behind us. That's good. He'll be around for the whole show. I'm sure you've seen him make appearances on other shows, but that's what he does. Coffee mug. I see you brought a coffee mug.
I've got my coffee mug. Drew, you actually got me this one.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, freshman in college. Mood swings were big.
Next mood swing in what? Only 6 minutes? Is that right?
Only
6
minutes.
It's a lot of time. I've wanted the I Love Dog mug again. It's a go-to of mine. I like this one. What do you have?
You know what? I didn't do good this time because mine's a Christmas mug, but I like it because it's big. It's like a bowl these are my favorite mugs. A bowl that's really a mug.
She does this with like pasta and stuff too. You ever notice that? Like the other night she had pasta and she was hungry. Instead of like going back for seconds, it's just one massive bowl of pasta.
Or the whole pan.
Yeah, was it the whole pan?
Sometimes I just bring the whole pan and eat it all from the whole.
Why dirty another dish?
Why? Yeah, why exactly?
Why would I do that?
Another thing, folks, you'll find on the show, they tend to think alike, these two. So we'll run into that quite a bit. Okay.
She's so cute. You look good, Mare.
You're both adorable. Okay. So Mary, what is the nice late start to the show, but we're all curious. What is life like on the front lines of the hospital? It must have been hearing stories, but what's it like?
Starting off strong. It's it's not fun. I mean, it's scary. I don't want to scare people, but I mean, to be completely honest, it's heartbreaking. I know that I'm going to go to work every day and that I'm going to have, hello, that's my cat. I'm going to have, patients dying, patients suffering. It's tough. It's tough for the patients. It's tough for all the nurses, all the doctors, all of the hospital staff.
Is it, I didn't even know this, but a guy I played Little League with and kind of grew up with, we're on the same team in Little League, and he, about a year older than me, so, 33, 34 now. He was the 100th patient discharged from Winchester Hospital the other day. And
Oh, that's awesome.
I didn't notice it, but I didn't know he was in the hospital, but I noticed when he came out and they did the parade and all the nurses were there clapping. I said, hey, I know that guy. So I reached out to him. He's, trying to get his strength back and just resting up a little bit. But he said, I will tell you this, COVID sucks.
Yeah.
He had a really tough time. And he said, without the nurses and the nurse practitioners and the doctors, he said they would have been, he doesn't know what he would have done. So,
yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's scary because, he's a young guy. Like, we're seeing patients of all ages, no one is immune to this. So
yeah, let's get that myth right out of the way, right? I mean, this is not something you're not just seeing people elderly with underlying conditions, right?
No, definitely not. I mean, I've had patients who drove themselves to the hospital. We've got patients of all ages who are coming in and they're totally healthy, no past medical history, not even, patients who are smokers. The smoking and the vaping and all of that is bad, but there are patients who have literally no, medical issues that are not doing well. I mean, there are patients who are doing well and end up being discharged, but it's scary and it's really unpredictable.
And one of the other tough things too, and I think anybody who's ever had maybe a family member in the hospital battling something serious and, all you really want to do is be there for those people and see them. And that can't happen. I mean, that is such a huge part of this story, right?
It's the hardest part because you have patients who are scared and alone and, we come in and as nurses and nurses' aides and the doctors, like, we're totally covered. I mean, I wear 3 different masks, eye protection, hair coverage, a gown that covers me from, my neck to my knees. And, they have no faces that are comforting and they don't have their family with them. I mean, we're able to FaceTime family, but it's not the same, being able to hold someone's hand and just keep them comfortable, even if the patient doesn't know that they're there, is still huge for those patients. And to be completely alone is really hard.
Is that filling the void at all? I mean, it sounds so, FaceTime is just not the same as human interaction. I mean, it's going to be important though, at least to see faces, right? I mean,
yeah,
that must be a whole new tool for you, using FaceTime to really connect patients with families.
Yeah. And as a nurse, being the person, I be in the room holding the iPad or whatever it is, to make that connection. And I almost kind of feel like a channel between them because, the family members are saying things and I'm the one who's there physically holding the patient's hand, providing the comfort. So I almost kind of feel like I've bonded in a way with these families and patients that I've never had to do before. But for the patients too, just being able to see a familiar face and being able to see their family members and kind of their demeanor changes. It's not the same, but it's better than nothing.
Yeah. Has it been like a whole new training for you? I mean, everybody who's ever been to a hospital and any experience I've ever had has been great. I mean, it feels like you're being cared for and feels like you're the only patient in the world when something serious has happened. But is it almost like a whole new training where like we not only have to give them medical care, but we
Mhm.
also have to be there for them mentally, and we are their family right now.
Yeah, I mean, I have had patients, I was actually just saying this the other day, I've had patients before who, unfortunately, in my 5 years as a nurse, I've had patients who have passed away alone, and I've been that person for them. But it hits a little bit differently now. And I think, I forget what the question was.
Are you there as like a family member almost too? It's like just not the medical side anymore. It's you're there for the emotional and mental side.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like as, healthcare providers and nurses, I think we are always kind of empathetic and compassionate, and we've always kind of been that caretaker and wanting to be emotionally connected to our patients. But now more than ever, it's so much more so now, more than ever.
Is it, I can imagine, I mean, as I know a lot of the world is complaining about not going to work, but, and that's all you want people to do. And social distancing is the name of the game. That's the only way to beat it. But is it draining? I mean, it's a draining job anyway, I know, but is it more draining through something like this where like you come home and it's just, you can't even believe the day you had?
Exhausted. Yeah. I mean, you're just mentally, physically, emotionally, totally tapped and drained at the end of the day. I stayed an extra couple hours the other day, and it was the first time I had worked a 12-hour shift in a couple of, probably like a week or so. And I got home and I was just exhausted. There's like no words for it. And I mean, not for nothing, but wearing a mask all day, I think I'm probably breathing in my own CO2 and driving myself a little crazy, but it's a whole new level of exhaustion.
How do you keep morale up throughout the staff? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of leaning on each other, right? It's a close-knit group anyway. I know doctors, nurses, but in these times, it must be really, really relying on that person next to you.
Yeah, so we are doing a lot of team nursing. There's a lot of nurses from other areas that aren't up and running right now. So we're not doing a lot of outpatient procedures. So a lot of those nurses are coming just to be, extra support staff and extra set of hands. And I'm finding that I'm leaning on my team more than ever. I live alone, so going to work is almost, however exhausting it is, it's almost therapeutic because I'm able to kind of talk to them and they know exactly what I'm going through. I know what they're going through. And it's hard to relate to people who don't quite get what's going on and who's, the people on the front lines, they get it. So being there at work, we're able to work together as a team and all lean on each other. So it's good. We have a good system.
Again, we're joined here by Mary Conway, a nurse practitioner on the North Shore through a pandemic, which is something that's, nobody ever plans for a pandemic, but that's what the case we're in. Sarah's sister here, Mary. Do you have any questions, by the way, for Mary?
So many questions for Mary.
Oh, good. This is good. Usually I go to her and she goes, no, you do the questions.
Well, no, I mean, I just, I get frustrated when I go online and I see people protesting and people saying it's not real and people going out and not social distancing and not listening to the professionals. And I'm sure you being on the front lines, that is even like more frustrating with you going to work and having those long days and seeing all the things that you're seeing. Is there any like type of message you want to get out there to people who just don't understand?
You're right. It's infuriating. I know that there are people that just they don't see what's happening in the hospital. And I know people think that it's all a conspiracy or that it's a hoax, but it's real. And it's terrifying. And to have to go to work and be scared to go to work every single day is not something I would wish upon anybody. I don't wish this upon anybody's family or their family members because it's just an unexplainable situation. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to change anybody's minds, but the best thing we can do is to stay home and to socially distance and physically distance, because I think the whole social distancing is it's starting to wear on people, and people are getting stir crazy, and I get it. And I know you want to get out, and I know the weather's getting nicer, and people just want to get out of their house and see their friends and see their family. And I know how hard it is, but you also have to think that you may be going to see your family member, but that could be the last time you see them. They could go to the ER the next day, and you could not be able to go and visit them in the ER or in the hospital, and that could be it. I haven't been symptomatic. I don't know if I have had it, but I've had constant exposure. And I am trying my best to stay away from everybody. I haven't been to a grocery store in like 4 weeks. I haven't really, you just have to do it. We just have to suck it up and just do what we can for each other and for our families and for our friends to protect everybody.
Just you and the cat.
Yeah.
Just me and the cat.
But I think there's a lot of people who are very privileged to be able to stay home and not have to go out there and put themselves in harm's way. And all we have to do is just stay home, not go out there, sit on the couch, watch TV, in the backyard.
I knew you were going to talk more during the show.
It's just something that I'm passionate about. Stay home.
Stay home.
Ooh, and a finger point. Very good.
You.
What is the, I don't want you to get into like specific cases because I know that's private and all that stuff, but I think what people don't understand maybe is how the toll that this takes on the body when you're in there. We hear like, if you were to ask me what the symptoms were of COVID-19, I could probably list 25 of them that I have heard, probably symptoms, but like, give us an idea of like what it does as far as like attacking the body, like some of the stuff you've seen in there.
So this virus is honestly unlike any other that I've ever seen as a nurse or studied in school or read in the book. Like it affects every single system in the body, every single system, from head to toe. Patients, not everybody is affected the same way, but those that are getting hit really hard with it, head to toe, every single organ system is being affected.
Mm-hmm.
So you're just lying there and just everything hurts, everything.
Obviously people know the big ones, the respiratory, the shortness of breath, the requiring oxygen and extra help from, what we can provide in the hospital. But it's affecting people's kidneys, which then affects your blood pressure, which affects your cardiac function. People are having, strange rashes. It's affecting their GI system. They're not able to eat well. It's, they're not able to really maintain their electrolytes. So we're constantly having to replace their electrolytes. It literally affects every single system in the body.
It sounds terrible, obviously. What about I know a lot of nurses and doctors have come down with this across the country. Obviously, you're around it so much and it's such a contagious disease. I'm sure you've seen maybe friends that have had to leave the hospital because they're sick. But that has to be constantly on your mind, right? Do I have it? Are you able to block that out? How do you block that out when you're working in that environment?
I feel like at work, when I'm there and when I'm with my patients are my priority. My team is my priority. So my needs, and I think that's true for many nurses, kind of go to the wayside. I think mostly affects me like when I get home. I burnt my tongue on a cup of tea the other day and thought I lost my sense of taste and was paranoid. But you're just constantly thinking. I know my biggest thing I think is that I'm not sleeping really well. And like that anxiety is in the back of my head. It's not constantly something I'm thinking about, but it's definitely something that keeps me awake at night. It's hard to fall asleep, hard to stay asleep, because you're just nervous. You don't know what to expect. Am I going to get sick? Is my family going to get sick? Am I going to be able to take care of the patients that I need to take care of? And it's hard to block out. But when you're at work, when you're taking care of your team and your patients, you just kind of put your needs aside and focus on what they need.
But everybody has a bad day though, right? I mean, it's,
Oh yeah.
you must have coworkers that it must be kind of tough in this environment to pick another coworker up. Maybe you can on the normal day, and, during the winter 4 months ago, maybe it was easier to pick somebody up having a bad day. It's going to be tough to really worry about another coworker when all this other stuff is going around you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there are days that are harder than others. But I think every single one of the nurses on my floor have had, one of those days, one of those really bad days. You feel like you can't do what you're here to do and what you're meant to do as a nurse, and you feel helpless and like you're failing yourself, you're failing your patients, you're failing your team. And we all have our moments where we kind of break down. I know I think I cried at work twice today, but
Twice today?
Today was a rough day. Today was one of those days, but we rely on our team, and the nurses that I work with are amazing, and a lot of the doctors and the nurse practitioners that I work with are just outstanding, and we pick each other up. And there's also been so much, I can't believe I forgot to mention this already, but so much from the community. Donations and, people offering to buy us coffee and sending food and, pick-me-ups, hand lotion, just like those things that just make you feel appreciated. And it's those little things that just kind of make you feel like you can keep going and make you feel a little better.
That's good to hear. You can take the next one, Sarah. But before I forget, I do want to ask about that. What is everybody in the country seems to be talking about supplies and whether the hospitals have enough supplies and whether we're good on that front. How have you felt? Again, we're north of Boston. How are the hospitals here doing? Are we okay? Are we adequate? What would be the terminology you'd use?
We're okay. So right now, on a given day, so when I come into work, I have an N95, which is it's just a special mask that blocks quite a bit of smaller sized, I guess, particles getting through. So I have an N95 that I'm supposed to wear for 3 shifts or until it's soiled or loses its integrity. So if like the straps are too loose and they're not creating a good seal on my face, or if it's visibly like soiled, if it gets sweaty or anything like that. I also, on top of that, wear a regular surgical mask to protect the mask underneath it. And then I also, when I'm going into patient's room, wear a mask with an eye shield. So the N95 I wear for 3 shifts at a time. And then we recycle those. And they go to a facility, I believe, to be cleaned. We have to go to a specific location in the hospital where they will sign you out a new N95, but they're very strict on when you can have it. You have to bring your old N95 to them so that they can say, yeah, this needs to be recycled at this point, and say that you're ready for a new one. And then our gowns, which we wear, that's once a shift. It seems like we're good with gowns. We're doing okay with masks. I know so many people have made, masks for us, which are so great and so appreciative of those, and all the donations. But unfortunately, in the situation where I'm on a COVID positive unit, we need the N95s. And unfortunately, the hospital, for liability reasons, can't make sure that the N95s that are provided from like Home Depot or that are donated, they can't fit test us with those. They can only fit test us with the hospital provided equipment. So even if we were to wear those, we don't know if we're getting adequate protection from them.
Okay. Is the mask the biggest worry, or is there other stuff that we're not even thinking of that's like, you know what, we wish we had more of this?
I think it's probably the masks that are the biggest worry. We seem to be doing okay. Every time I've gone down to get a new mask, they have provided me with one. But obviously they're keeping them under wraps so that we don't get to a point where we don't have any. which is understandable. I mean, it's hard when this equipment, you know, my entire career and my entire life working in the healthcare field, it was one and done. You wore that in a patient's room, even if it was for 5 minutes, and you threw it away when you walked out. So
those were the rules, right?
What was that?
Those were the rules, right? If you didn't do that, that was a violation, right?
Oh yeah. Yep. You know, the big companies that you're seeing, Jayco and OSHA and WHO, and those were the recommendations. And now that equipment is limited, and it's, you know, this isn't just here, like this is worldwide. So any of this equipment that, you know, say we were getting the masks from China, we can't get those masks from China anymore. So it's, you know, it's hard to get the equipment.
But I can't imagine, Mare. So you're talking about all this equipment that you're wearing. I mean, I've had tough shifts where I'm not in all like equipment like that, and I'm exhausted, and I don't have a covering over my face or a covering over my eyes. And you said you cried 2 times in the last shift that you had. How does that work with a mask and a face shield and a full, you know?
How do you cry? Is that your question?
My question is, yeah, but just logistically, like I don't know, do you get a break to go like take a couple of minutes and take all that stuff off, or what happens?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, well, when I cried today, I was with a patient. So, you know, we were crying together. It was just one of those moments where we were, you know, kind of dealing with something one-on-one. You know, it's therapeutic for them too. They know that they're not in it alone. And I know there have been so many people who say, you know, you shouldn't cry in front of your patients. You need to be the strong one. But, you know, he was there. He needed someone to connect with. And, you know, sometimes it's good to just have a good cry. And he and I cried it out together. And I did take a break after that and dried off as best as I could. But my N95 did get a little damp. And we just, you have to kind of dust it off.
I like to wear the mask for the couple of minutes that we go outside, you know? Imagine wearing that mask for how long are your shifts, Meryl? Like 8 hours?
12 hours, yeah.
12 hours.
And there are some nurses, just because things are so tough right now, we're just trying to do the best we can for our patients, for our team, that are working like 16 plus hours. And I don't know how they do it, but...
And I know the rest of our listeners don't know you, Mary, but you're tough. You're not going to cry too often. I can imagine that tells me the fact that you, what was your mug? What did your mug say again?
Yeah, show the mug again.
Mood swing.
Next mood swing? Yeah, mood swings don't necessarily mean tears. But the fact that you have told me, and thank you for coming on the day where you cried twice, but that tells me that there's a lot of rough days happening right now, and that tells me that there's probably a lot of tears going around. I mean, can anybody picture an environment like that to work in?
No, I mean, I don't think I've ever been able, like, this is something that I would have never expected. And I know I've only been a nurse for 5 years, but even the nurses who I've worked with who've been doing this for, you know, decades, this is something that no one has ever seen. So really to predict that this was going to happen, or to, you know, ever imagine that we would be in this situation is just totally unfathomable. I mean, it's crazy. It is. And it's unexplainable. Like, I cannot even put into words the things that we're seeing and doing every single day.
How about those, you know, you talk about those one-on-one moments there. And I guess that's kind of what we were talking about earlier, when you're almost like a family member there and you're just kind of having a one-on-one moment and trying to work through something. And I know I know you've seen, just the numbers tell me that you've seen people pass away from this in the hospital. I won't ask for personal cases, but what is that like as a group? I mean, I'm sure you all take it to heart as a hospital. Okay, we just lost another one to this horrible thing. Like, do you even have time to like pay respect and say that sucked and move on? Or is it like, okay, next person who needs help?
I think it's a combination of both. I think, you know, we've like you said, every single nurse that I know has had, a patient who's passed away on their time, and the way that they're passing away, the fact that they have to be, alone without family members is really tough. So we're trying to be at the bedside with them as much as we possibly can. And, just being able to be there and hold their hand, or, position their bed, go and put it next to a window if you can, so that they can, just feel like they're closer somewhat to the outside world. We're doing little things like that. And if I can have another nurse with me at the bedside to just, have two of us there holding that patient's hand, we try our very best to do that and to make it as peaceful and as comfortable and happy as we can. A lot of people see, the death and the dying process is such a scary and a negative thing. But it's really, I know this is very strange, but it's a blessing to be able to be a part of such an intimate moment in someone's life. Mm-hmm. When babies are born and when people are dying, and like those moments in life are you can't get them back. So to be able to be there with my patients and be that source of comfort is,
talk about the little things, not just moving to a window.
Yeah. We've had a lot of patients who, if we have that ability, we can just move them closer to a window and let the sun be near them, or so that they can kind of see the sky. And we can't open the windows, but at least they're closer to it. But unfortunately, in the situation, we do the best we can to keep them comfortable and make sure that, their process is their process and it's an individualized process. And then we do unfortunately have to move on to the next patient and make sure that everybody is taken care of, so that they don't have to go to that point too.
Again, we're joined here by Mary Conway, our sister, Sarah's sister, my sister-in-law. She's a nurse practitioner on the North Shore. One thing I do know about the human spirit is, even in the toughest of times, the worst of times, and I know nobody ever predicts a pandemic, but there are always moments of levity, and always something that just makes, whether it be the nurses, the doctors, whether it be all the medical staff, whether it be maybe the patients are involved, there's always something that what's the moment of levity been so far? Is there anything that jumps out to you of I can't believe that happened and made us all smile through a horrible time? You're trying to think of happy moments.
I gotta think of the happy moments. I mean, there have been, we've had a couple patients who have come out on the other side of this, and being able to see some of these patients who were, in the ICU, intubated on a ventilator, be able to come off of that and to go home and walk out of the front door of our hospital is amazing. It gives you hope. We kind of do, I know you mentioned earlier the little parade. We play over the entire intercom system throughout the hospital. When a patient is discharged, we play Here Comes the Sun. Mm-hmm. And usually when we have a patient discharge on my floor, we all the nurses, all of the, nurses assistants, if we have doctors on our floor, respiratory therapists, we try to line the floor up on either side, and we clap and we sing and we dance. And, it's those moments that, are giving us hope that, our patients are going to make it and we're going to make it. And there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Do you think other patients hear that stuff and or maybe that can be inspiring for them? You know what, that could be me. So, I hope so. It's 'cause it's scary. I mean, a lot of these patients, they come from all different backgrounds, and not everybody totally understands healthcare. Healthcare is kind of an unknown for many people. And a lot of people are kind of unaware of what goes on when it comes to being a patient in a hospital, and what you go through. And so I hope that being able to hear that music overhead and to have your nurse there who's, we're as transparent as we can possibly be with our patients. I know I tell my patients when I'm worried about them, when they're doing well, when they're, there's things I have to do, I make sure that they know what's going on and that they're in good hands, and try to build that bond with them so that they can build trust in me and in the team that's working to get them where they need to go. So I hope that we're providing them with some type of, trust and faith that things are going to get better.
I bet. Again, Mary Conway joining us, nurse practitioner on the North Shore. Sarah, you got another one? Or?
I just listening to you talk, I feel like these patients have to be so lucky to have, granted they don't have their family by their side, but to have you guys there and people who care enough to do those little things like move their bed next to the window and FaceTime with their family. So I just hope, I'm sure they appreciate what you're doing, but I hope other people appreciate what you're doing too. It makes me
And it's strange what has happened to the whole system too. Like I work with a woman whose father is sick, and she was saying it's like because of this, it's not COVID or anything, but because of this, she can't get into a hospital either.
Yeah. I've had friends who have family members who are in the hospital for, non-COVID related units. We have, I think, one unit now at my hospital that's considered like the clean unit. So there's no COVID patients who have COVID symptoms that could possibly have COVID or that are COVID positive on that floor. And, that's scary too, because you're in the hospital. Being in the hospital at any time is scary, but being at the hospital during this time, I think, is even scarier. And the fact that you can't have, your family there with you, it's awful. And I can't imagine the anxiety that, these patients are feeling, just being in a hospital at this time when that's what everyone's avoiding doing, is going to a hospital.
And we'll get to some, I do want to get to a couple of fun questions with you in a second here because you're a very fun person. But the last thing I do want to say, you had a line that stuck with me. I don't even know if you remember saying it like maybe a week or two ago. It was just, I overheard you two talking on a FaceTime call, but you were having a very serious conversation with your sister here. And I don't know, Sarah said something like, thank you. And she said, it's really you guys, you are the front line, which I thought was admirable. But you were just kind of making the point that people need to social distance because it's the one thing that like the medical professionals are asking for.
Yeah.
And like if they could know what is actually happening within those hospital walls, they would do it in a heartbeat.
Oh yeah.
And that just stuck with me. I don't know what you want to do with that, but that's just, it stuck with me.
Yeah. I think there's different interpretations into what people mean by frontline. And like, I know I'm working in a hospital and I'm seeing all this stuff, but I also think a frontline is, the people who are protecting everybody. And I think that in this situation, in a pandemic situation where social distancing and physical distancing are what is going to save us, that puts everybody on the front line. Like you guys, everybody who's, not able to go to work and is supposed to be staying home, like you guys are part of that front line. You have to do your job. Everybody has to do your job. I cannot physically stay home. I have to go to work, which means, I have to go to the gas station. There are certain places that I just have to go in order for me to be able to do my job. And I do the best I can. Like I said, I haven't been to a grocery store. I'm staying away from family and friends, but, everybody has a role in this. And we all have to be that front line to protect each other.
And one other thing on that note, do most people know how they got it? Do they come in, or is it like half, or do they know?
So there are actually tracers that are, I think, working. I'm not really sure how it works, so don't hold me to this, but I know there's a lot of people who are essentially making phone calls to patients who are positive and essentially trying to trace back where they may have been linked or where they may have, I guess, contracted the virus. We've had a lot of patients who are from, whether it's group homes or nursing homes, where who knows when this all really started. We don't know when, the pandemic truly hit in the US. I think it was probably going on much longer than we really knew, before we really started socially distancing. So I'm sure there were, there's no way to really trace where it all started, or where necessarily everybody got it, but who knows? Grocery stores, visiting family members who are in nursing homes. It's really hard to.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's my last year. This is my last serious question, because I remember going to the gym and playing basketball. It was the last night we played, and it was probably mid-March, I would say. Mm-hmm. And it was like one very distinct night where I remember we all kind of looked at each other, and like we were kind of looking at Twitter, I remember too, and kind of watching this all escalate. It seemed to happen very quickly when it was like, oh man, okay, this is here, and like life may be changing tomorrow. And then all of a sudden nobody was going to the gym, and like there was a kind of a distinct moment. I think it was about mid-March. But was there a point like in, I don't know, maybe it was February or something, where the hospital started saying, we're not exactly sure what's happening here, but there's something here that's weird?
Yeah, I mean, I remember, once things really started getting kind of crazy and scary and over in China, I remember we have a lot of physicians who have connections over in that area. And, they all said, it's coming. We don't know when it's coming, but it will come here. And I remember just being, scared, but at the same time, it's just at that moment, I think it was just so unreal. We couldn't put our hands on it. We couldn't visualize it, even though we were seeing all the videos and all that stuff and what was happening over in China and Italy. But it just seemed so surreal until it really hit here and hit closer to home. But it was, we heard little trickles of it in the news and in the at work from all the doctors. And
you hear it in other countries too, and you're thinking, well, it's going to be tough for the virus to travel like that. We know we'll never think that way again. No. But you think it won't be as bad here at least.
Yeah.
And anyway, any more serious ones for Mary?
We are.
Want to move on to anything lighter here?
Oh, I feel like I did, and now I can't remember what they were.
Oh, well, you can come back to it.
Okay.
I was going to say, anybody who knows Mary, one of our summer rituals, we go to see Dave Matthews every summer for Mary's birthday. We're going to have to come up with a rain check play for that one.
No, I know. I'm so bummed. He had, what did he do? One of the live concerts, which was great. I think he should do another one just in favor of my birthday. Little celebration. Dave, if you're listening.
Mary would like a full show. You would like a full day.
Dave, if you're watching the show, for Mary's birthday, we need a live stream.
I think I would like a more formal request, Mary. I would like you to form that into a full pitch. I'll give you 10 seconds to think about what you would say. But
oh dear,
so we've had some. No, it's going to be good. Trust me. We've had a few 30-minute Dave streams and a couple songs here or there. He's been pretty good with the stream, but Mary would like more. Take it away. What would you like?
Yeah, Dave. I need the jellyfish. I need to hear ya. I don't know.
One of you might actually have to show. One of you might actually have to show the jellyfish if you're going to mention it.
You need a little more room to jellyfish. Yeah, they like it. You need space.
The jellyfish, folks, is a dance that these two do during Dave Matthews shows. That it's pretty fun to watch.
That's the best dance. It's just a very flowy. You just move. Just go with the flow, You just.
I hope that translated virtually.
Oh man, I wish we had Dave in the background. We could really let loose.
Well, we're requesting a Dave concert for Mary's birthday.
Yes.
Maybe a full show. Might be a tough ask. Although I feel like he's getting stir crazy too. I've seen some of those streams, and I think he's itching to play, like most of these musicians who are supposed to be touring right now.
I know.
Yeah, I think he's right.
And that's the thing, is it's affecting everybody. It doesn't matter who you are. This pandemic is affecting every single human being, dog, cat, animal.
That is a good point, and I think it's a very uniting thing too, that we're really just all everyone is having some kind of it's affecting them in some way. So this all brings us together too.
I know this isn't your expertise necessarily. Your job is to get people healthy in hospitals, but and I know even the people that are supposed to know these things have no idea what they're really looking at yet, but what is from what you've seen, I mean, are we far away from going to a concert like we remember, or a sports event? Like,
if it was me, I mean, I'm a huge advocate for just staying away from everybody, even small groups. I don't think you should even be going to the hairdresser, let alone going to, a big concert with thousands of people. So I think it's gonna be a while. It is hard to put a date on it, and I don't want to be that person, the Debbie Downer, who's saying that I think it's going to be a while, but I think for everybody's safety and based on what I'm seeing, stay home. Just stay home.
And I, based on what you're seeing, I mean, I know you're going to start hearing here as we, start to move into the summer, like that whole other side of the peak surge, but let's be very clear. The other side of the peak surge is still an ugly time for hospitals.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think a lot of what the peak is, the people coming into the emergency department and testing positive, or the ICU admissions. So I do believe at this point those have slowed down. But the floor that I work on is typically the floor that patients will go to after. I like that the mug covers her whole face.
I know if you're talking, they can't see me. So. Oh, sorry, mug face.
Here, we'll talk as Sarah does this. Now you can all see what she's doing. Perfect. It's hilarious. I laughed. I tried not to laugh 3 times.
Sorry, I didn't realize I couldn't see you. So I think, the aftermath of the ER admission and the ICU stay is where I'm seeing patients. And these patients are staying for long, extended periods of time. And the other thing about this is that we don't know what the long-term effects of this is yet. It hasn't been around that long. So it's just unpredictable. We don't know these patients who are, young and healthy, and they've come down with COVID, and who knows what's that is going to affect for the rest of their lives. So it's we still have a ways to go, and I think where I'm at and where I'm seeing my patients at, they still have a long road ahead of them. Even though we are sending them home or sending them to rehab, it's going to be a while before they're back on their feet and back to where they were prior to getting this.
What is the one thing you learned about your team, all these medical professionals that are still coming in day after day? What's the one thing you're taking away with this as well, let's face it, you're young in this profession, but what's the one thing you're taking away?
These people are amazing. I mean, they are so strong, and even though we have our days where we might cry multiple times a day, they are amazing. And the fact that they can, put their troubles aside for their patients and put all of their worries aside just to support one another. It's amazing. And I can't say more about my work family. They really are a second family to me. I don't know what I would do without them. Even when I'm not at work, I'm constantly, texting the people I work with and calling them, and, just making sure that we're all doing okay and we have each other's backs. And they're just amazing. They really are. You can't say much more about them.
Very nice. What's the and you mentioned that the public's doing a lot of good. What do the hospitals need? If somebody's sitting at home going, "Oh my goodness, I need to do something here for Mary and her people," what is the one thing that hospital Mary and her people? Yeah, she has people. What is the one thing though that the hospitals maybe it's something little, I don't know, maybe it's pizza, everybody loves pizza, I don't know, but what's the one thing that hospitals are yes, thank you, that is what we needed at that moment?
I'm trying to think of the hot commodities, a lot of the donations that we've gotten. I mean, people have just been so generous. If I can speak for everybody in the hospital, just thank you to all the local businesses, small businesses who are going through enough of this stuff right now, that are just making donations and trying to keep us fueled and happy and, fed. What's the one thing?
How about that? Other businesses are stepping up too, huh? That's pretty.
Oh, yeah.
You keep hearing about all these businesses that are struggling to even get by, but there are also businesses that are helping you get through. That's cool.
Yeah. There's a lot of local small businesses that have donated lunch and, food, coffee, all that stuff is great. We appreciate anything that you guys can give. But I also want people to kind of realize, like, these small businesses are struggling too. So we're so appreciative of the stuff that you guys are donating to us. And we, I wish there was more that I could do to help them.
What's the weirdest thing you've had? Is there something that was like, okay, well, that's just not useful?
The weirdest thing?
Somebody
can't say that.
Oh, come on. Never
someone
mind.
who gave her,
Ignore it's not.
But that's a good idea, though. She's saying small businesses. It's like people give you money and then you can go like get food from a local restaurant or something like that.
I know. I was just trying to
accept money.
No money. Okay, no money.
No, we don't accept gifts or money, but it's always appreciated for people are sending us food to be fueled and stuff. We appreciate everything that you guys are sending. We've also gotten a lot. I think one of the things that this is just dawning on me, we had a family member of a patient who was elderly and unfortunately not doing well. We had gotten to the point where the family had decided, let's just keep them comfortable. Let's not do anything more invasive. Let's just, do the best we can to make sure that they're comfortable and peaceful. And one of the family members sent us a beautiful letter, and she had crocheted these small hearts. They were heart-shaped, little pink crocheted little stuffies. And she wrote us a letter that said, her family member who was in the hospital had taught her how to crochet. And she made these hearts to pass out to patients so that they had something to hold on to. So we actually went around and gave those little hearts to all the patients we could, but we gave them a lot to especially the patients who had made that decision to just be comfortable. And it's sorry, guys.
That one got me.
That was one of those donations that just, it got all of us. And that was another one of those moments where we were able to kind of connect on such a different level with our patients, with their family members, just through that letter and that token that a patient could hold on to, just to feel a little bit more loved and a little bit more comforted during a really difficult time.
Well, now you've got us all crying on the final question of the show. We made you cry for the third time today. I'm sorry, Mary. That is very sweet. It's a very nice way to end it, I think. But there you go. The human spirit, right?
Yeah.
That's very nice.
I mean, and even when you say you're like crying on your shifts, I mean, that is a way of you empathizing with your patients. So that's not a sign of weakness. That's just you guys being good nurses. So
yeah, I think we all understand that.
Okay, I know, but anyway.
Mary, that we've been beginning and ending a lot of our shows by thanking everybody on the front line. So what else to say? So thank you for all the work you and all your coworkers are doing. North Shore, Boston, South Shore, everywhere in this state and New England and the whole country and the world, really. It's something that it's great to go within the walls and actually hear the stories, because I think it's good to keep that in perspective, how hard of a battle it actually is in those hospitals. But thank you for all the great work you're doing. And it's courageous. You guys are all the heroes. And thank you.
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate you guys putting it out there. I don't think everyone realizes the stuff that is happening inside the walls of a hospital, and being able to, just kind of educate people and make sure that they understand why we're doing all this social distancing and why we're taking it so seriously. So I appreciate you guys. I appreciate that you guys have been so good with your social distancing. And thank you.
Love you, Mayor.
Love you.
Stay safe in there, right? We'll say goodbye because a lot of times we'll say goodbye. We're going to talk to Mary more after this, I think, just to want to catch up. So why don't I say goodbye to everybody for the week? That is it. We ended the week with kind of a powerful, heavy topic, but hey, it's what we're all living in there in COVID-19 times as we're all hunkering down. It's been a fun week. Thank you to Ryan Montsblue. Thank you to Tori Mazzola, and thank you to Mary Conway, nurse practitioner on the North Shore, doing great work. And those are the heroes among us. So thank you. Thank you. Sarah Conway, my wife, thanks for appearing on all 3 shows this week.
I did make an appearance on all of them.
That's right. Still not getting paid. Maybe I could give you something. I don't know. What's yours is mine. My name is Drew Moholland. Thank you for a great week here, live from Drew's house, our kitchen. And it's been fun. We'll see you next week. Have a good weekend, everybody. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye, everybody. We'll see you next week.